All right, 9.2b, elementary algebra. We're continuing on with completing the square, and hopefully we do a few more of these and you'll kind of get it a little bit. All right, I'm going to go to the lesson, the problem set, and do one from there before we get into example 5 because they make a little bit of a leap there. All right, so let's look at number 26. Y squared plus 6y minus 1 equals 0. All right, they want you to complete the square. So that means, first step, we get rid of our constant, our number there, our third number. So we're going to do that by adding 1 to both sides. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. And I leave a blank there, and I got 1 over here. All right, second step, take half of this number and square it. So half of 6 is 3, square it is 9. And this 9 goes there, and we also add that same number to both sides. You always add the number to both sides. Okay? Doesn't look too terrible. Next step, we make a parenthesis. We take this sign, put it there, square root of that, square root of that, put an exponent of 2, equals that. Okay? Next step, do this with red. We take the square root of both sides, and that goes plus or minus. So the sign goes off. Okay? So we subtract 3 to get y by itself. Okay. And that's all the further we can go. That is a good answer. Okay. So let's look at one more. I just want to make sure that you've had some examples so you can do this. 36 is x squared minus 4x equals 4. Notice there is not a number. There is not a third number here. So we just make a blank there. Okay? We didn't have to move the 4 over. It's already over. So we did that. Take half of that and square it. Add it to the other side as well. Sometimes I forget to do that, and then you wonder why you get the wrong answer. Well, that ends up being y. Parenthesis, squared this symbol right there, square root of that, square root of that. Okay? Square root, plus or minus. Okay, now I add 2 to both sides. So I get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 8. Okay, so at this point we've got our answer, but because you're such awesome radical simplifiers, you know that the square root of 8 is square root of 4 times 2. And I can take the square root of 4, and I can't do anything with that. So that ends up with your answer. So make sure that you can carry that plus or minus sign with you. All right, so let's go back to, let's see, what was it? Example 5. All right, one of the things that you need to be aware of is you cannot complete the square if you have a lead coefficient, if you have a number in front of the x squared. You just can't do it. So, we are going to learn how to get rid of that number in front of our x squared. Pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to divide everything here by 3. Okay, whoops, that's 0 there. Okay, we can also divide that by 3. Everything there we divide by 3. 3 over 3 is 1. 24 over 3. 27 over 3. 0 over 3 is 0. There, we just got rid of the number in front of that. Okay? Wasn't too bad. So you divide everything by whatever number is in front of there. Alright, so now we're going to add 9 to both sides to get rid of that 9. Alright, now we have a blank there because we took it away. We're just taking this and moving it over here and going to replace the 9 with another number. That other number then will be half of this squared. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. And we add 16 here. So we have this right here that we're going to make into that with that. There's a plus sign there. Square root of that. Square root of that. 9 plus 16 is 25. Okay? So far, so good. Now, square root of this side, square root of this side, plus or minus. X plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 25, which you know the square root of 25 is what? 5. Subtract 4, and we have x equals positive 5 minus 4, or the negative 5 minus 4. So that's going to be 1 or negative 9 as your two answers there. Okay? Alright, let's keep going. Let's do example 6 here. And see if we can slowly but surely make you feel comfortable doing this. And we have y squared minus 4y equals 0. Alright, there's two ways to do this. Okay? The easiest method would be factor a y out of both of these. And this tells me I have two answers. Y equals, what number here can I multiply by this to give me 0? Well, if that y was 0, if this y right here was 0, then that would work. Or y minus 4 equals 0. So y equals 4. So those are your two options. Y is 0 or y is 4. If we were to do this by completing the square, okay, we write it as okay, what number goes here? Half of this squared. And add 4 to here. Make your parentheses. Y minus 2 squared equals 4. Square root plus or minus. Y minus 2 then equals plus or minus the square root of 4 or 2. So I add 2, add 2. So y equals 2 plus 2 or negative 2 plus 2. Because remember, plus or minus. Plus 2 right here, the minus part goes here. So y equals 4 or 0. So both ways of solving these give you the same answer. Okay, one is just factoring, binomial factoring. This is using completing the square. Okay, so when the instructions say complete the square, you have to do it that way or you're going to get it counted wrong, especially like on a test, because they're trying to get you to practice it. Alright, so last example. Okay, I'm going to make my pen thinner because I think we're going to get into some long stuff going on here. So let's move that over. Alright, so first step, we're going to get that negative 2 and move it. And we have to find a new number to go there, right? So half of 5 over 1, half of that is 5 over 2, and then we square it. So that gives me 25 over 4. So I have to add that to both sides, don't I? All right, we're going to ignore this side right here for right now. Let's just work on this one. Parenthesis, plus sign, square root of that. Square root of that is square root of the top number over the square root of the bottom. Okay, now we're going to add our 2 plus 25 over 4. So let's look at this and kind of go over here and do that. 2 plus 25 over 4. Common denominators. So if I make this a 4, I had to multiply that 1 by 4, so I have to multiply the top by 4. So 8/4 is the same as 2 with a common denominator of 4. Alright, so that gives me 33 over 4 when I add those two. That's my little workspace there. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So far so good. Square root both sides. So we get x plus 5/2 equals plus or minus the square root 33 over 4. But one thing we know is we know what the square root of 4 is. So we are going to write this as x plus 5/2 equals plus or minus the square root of 33. But we know the square root of 4 is 2, so we can take the radical off. Alright, so there we go. What are we trying to find though? We're trying to find x, so we're going to get rid and that gets rid of all that. And let's see if we can move some of this up out of the way. And this is what we've got left. X equals, and we moved this over. And I'm going to put that negative 5/2 first. Okay. Not very pretty, but that works. Alright, one of the things that you can look at, you can be done here, but one of the things I want you to look at is they both have the same denominator. That means we could write this as negative 5. Since they both share the same denominator, I could write it like that. This is the better answer. If the denominators are the same, put everything in the top over that common denominator. And that's what you get for an answer. Kind of yucky, but there we go. Alright, so what we're going to do is do one problem again from the homework and see if that kind of gets you started on the homework assignment. And we're going to look at number 42. Number 42, and I'll see if I can kind of go through it pretty fast since I'm running out of video. Okay, I've got a number there, a 4, so I'm going to divide each one of these by 4. Okay, so that gives me x squared plus x minus 3/4 equals 0. And then I'm going to add 3/4 to both sides. Remember, you've got to get rid of that third term, so I just have the x's over here. And I've got a blank, and I've got a 3/4 that moved over there. Alright, what number is there? 1. Well, what's half of 1? Half of 1 is 1/2, and what happens when I square 1/2? I get 1/4. So I add that, and I add that. Alright, so I make my parentheses squared. This sign here goes here. Square root of that. What's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 4? 2. What's 3/4 plus 1/4? 4 over 4, which is 1. Okay. Square root both sides. X plus 1/2 equals plus or minus. What is the square root of 1? 1. Subtract 1/2, subtract 1/2. And I get, let me move this up here. Okay, so move that up. And what we have here then is x equals a positive 1 minus 1/2 and a negative 1 minus 1/2. And then solve.